What conversation have you had with your Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen? You really sounding negative on Pakistan and him missing deadlines, but how efficient has John Steenhuisen been?
The Minister, Steenhuisen, is busy looking at what other opportunities are there. And I'm going to be saying that as a province, we are also going to be having a look at what can provinces do.
Premier, here is something of a reality check. President Trump, it would seem, no matter what South Africa could have done, there's just something in him that wants to punish South Africa. Are you advocating for the Trump administration to poke its nose in South African legislation and dictate to us what can and the government cannot do?
Surely we should be asking ourselves at the same time, is they raising it? Let's raise it ourselves. Is it making a difference? Are we actually building it a safer community? Has BEE worked? Are we actually bringing down our unemployment rate? No. So at the same time, whatever those...
Guys, so the Western Cape Premier, Alan Winde, is angry. I think probably this was the headline of a newspaper article or something, but whatever the case is, Winde is angry. Winde is mad. Winde is upset with the tariffs that is actually hitting South Africa. I think it's, I don't know if it's been postponed. I thought it was on the 1st, but now it's confirmed to be hitting South Africa on the 7th of August. 30% tariff for every good that's exported out of South Africa, meaning the Americans would actually be spending more to obtain South African products. Alan Winde is angry that these tariffs would affect, especially in the Western Cape, fruits like citrus and, some other agricultural products. I think there was some really interesting, he speaks about the wine that comes from the Western Cape and also the citrus, all right, which will be affecting thousands of jobs. In the Eastern Cape, we're seeing that the tariffs will be hitting the automotive industry, affecting thousands of jobs. He's really angry with all of this as Premier and actually arguing that both him and John Steenhuisen as Minister of Agriculture are beginning to look for other markets to probably diversify because although he thinks it might not be a smart one because, it takes years, according to him, to build markets, all right, the infrastructure, the trust that it takes to establish a market and to have all of that ruptured within a while and trying to build a new market is not something that just happens in probably a short time. So he's really angry, all right? But the more I listen to this journalist, Toli from Newsroom, the more I slowly get a little bit of inkling on what's really going on, especially on the part of the GNU, or I don't know if to say the ANC. But I think that it's this whole thing about how do we respond to an attack on our sovereignty versus a multilateral system of governance or a multilateral rules-based economy where trade and all of these things goes on. So if you listen to Toli's question, as I started in the video, he actually thinks that regardless of what South Africa does, all right, Donald Trump, the US, they're actually hell-bent on punishing South Africa. We saw that there's a bill that's been passed right now in the parliament to punish or to target some specific ANC officials because of different kind of arguments and all of that. He just thinks that whatever South Africa does, the ANC, Donald Trump, is poised to punish South Africa. And why is it that Alan Winde isn't taking that into effect? Why is it that Alan Winde isn't considering that, it appears that probably the US, South Africa has stepped on the US's toes, and regardless of anything, all right, South Africa is determined to punish, the US is determined to punish South Africa. On the other hand, the US actually now, if we analyze the reports from the Afrikaners who actually visited the US, the likes of Gerhard Papenfors, Theodor Jager, and FF Plus leader Corner Mulder, they actually argue that the US has 4 requirements. One of them is this whole banning of the kill the boer, kill the farmer chant. They also want that BE would not affect American companies and all of that. They think that 4 specifications anyway that the US thinks South Africa needs to put in place, all right, to repair the relationship between the US and South Africa. The US, if I'm listening to this journalist correctly, and I think probably this would be the probably the position, allegedly anyway, of the ANC in this regard. Now we have the GNU, but I would argue that it might actually be the ANC, because we know that even though we have a GNU, the ANC has the portfolio for international relations. And so whatever international relations position we see South Africa at the moment, it is being steered by the ANC, all right, even though we have a GNU today in South Africa. Now, one of the questions I'm beginning to hear and really think is this whole thing about protecting our sovereignty. I would argue, and allegedly, that the ANC thinks that the US is trying to override the sovereignty of South Africa in this regard with these demands, and also with this kind of tariffs and all those dependencies and all of that. And probably this might, I don't know, probably, but I'll be having another video soon with the new international relations spokesperson from the DA. I don't quite remember his name now, but I think he's really another really sharp guy that actually took over from the lady that actually resigned recently. And he's been arguing that, Pak Tao, who is Minister of Trade, I think Trade and Competition, Industry, something like that. I think, and this is where the Deputy Minister Whitfield was at the moment. He actually argues, in the next video anyway, I'll be making a video. He argues that Pak Tao kept the country in limbo, in the dark, for a long time during this whole process of the decay of this process. And right now, South Africa doesn't even have an ambassador to actually begin negotiations for a better, deal with the US. I saw the communication between Donald Trump and Ursula von Leyen, the president of the European Union, in Scotland, after he built his golf course. They had a meeting there, and at the end of the day, we saw that the EU had actually negotiated a deal with the United States to 15%, I think, especially in terms of its automobiles that it sells to the US. And that's how important the US market is. And I think this was the message by this Ryan Smith, is his name, the new DA international spokesperson. He argues that the US is such an important market, and also Alan Winde also argues that the US is such an important market, and to which one South Africa has actually built a long-term relationship with, all right? And to have all of that, get destroyed without probably actively negotiating or actively pursuing a deal or negotiation to that effect, makes him really mad, to the point where South Africa now might have to leave. I don't really know how this whole negotiations to reduce these negotiations, these 30% tariffs would be, but this is where South Africa has found itself now staying using, or probably Winde himself argues that the Western Cape might actually now have to try to find a way to negotiate the parts to find alternative markets and all of that. But anyway, I just wanted us to listen to Alan Winde here, break down some of the implications of the 30% tariff, to which he argues that he's really mad, he's really angry, he's really upset. And I would argue probably and allegedly with the presidency for its, what he calls a lax attitude at pursuing an active negotiation for these tariffs. And share your thoughts, guys, in the comments.
We already know your feelings around this as contained in the Sunday papers today. You're a very angry man. Tell us how this is going to impact on some of the key sectors of your economy in the Western Cape.
Yeah, I really am not happy at all. I mean, I think South Africa has dropped the ball really badly here. And the implications are for thousands of jobs in this province that I'm responsible for. I raised this with the president 3 months ago in the PCC. This is the coordinating forum. When I raised it, I know that the Eastern Cape Premier also had some things to say. I said the provinces need to also be involved, because we are the regions that have the job implications if we don't get this right. As South Africa, we've missed 2 deadlines. It's unacceptable. We don't have an ambassador in place. We don't have a trade desk in the US. It's almost as if we don't treat them as a serious market. And that really does make me angry. We should not be dropping the ball like this. And for us here in the Western Cape, it has major consequences and implications. And so, as you said in the intro, the 30% have now kicked in. Our neighboring countries have all got 15%. We've got 30%. But the most important thing is that our products, and from this province, it's wine, it's citrus, it's agricultural products. From our neighboring province in the Eastern Cape, which is also going to have huge implications for that province, it's automotive. And when the tariff goes in at 30%, I mean, at the end of the day, Americans are just going to be paying a lot more for our products.
Yeah.
But what the implication is that other competitive nations who we have managed to compete with up until now are going to just be that much easier to do business with. They will be able to get better pricing into that American market. And it's not easy. Everybody says we just got to diversify. We've been doing this already for the last 3 months, but it takes a while. It takes a while to establish markets. And I'd say a while, it takes years to build a market. It takes years to service that market and build the trust in that market. And then to have it, this negative of a tariff, it really reverses all of that work for years. And the job implications are what really make me angry. So we have thousands of people who work in the wine industry. We have thousands who work in the citrus industry, and those two in this province are going to see the major impact. In the automotive, it's going to be in Gauteng and the Eastern Cape. But of course, the Eastern Cape, they're our neighbors. And when jobs get lost in the Eastern Cape, it puts more pressure on the Western Cape, on our education, on our health systems. And, this really upsets me when we could have probably fixed this. And, so I really want to see a lot more action from Minister Parks-Tau. I think we really have dropped the ball here.
Yeah. I'm keen to know what the president's reaction was. You say we missed 2 deadlines. On top of that, we don't have an ambassador in the United States. That's the more political space that's very complicated right now. What was his response?
Well, he said, yes, that sounds good that the provinces are involved, because we explained that, this is where the job losses are going to take place. It happens in provinces, and the implications are for us as a province. And so he said, yes, of course, we must have this discussion. And the platform that we were talking about was actually international relations with our international relations minister. The trade and industry minister wasn't in there, but in that meeting specifically. But I said, we've got to use this opportunity to talk about this, and we want to be more involved. And it's almost as if we get stonewalled all the time. Don't worry, we're sorting it out. In our province, we've called 3 meetings now thus far. And I must say that we did have a person from Parks-Tau's department. But of course, they told us about, what they'd asked for another extension, and they'd put something else on the table. I don't think there's the urgency in the system. And that's what makes me cross. We must not allow this to happen. We've already got such a high unemployment rate in South Africa. How can we, be so lax about putting a deal together? Every other country in the world seems to have put their deal together except South Africa. And we've got some trump cards. We export rare earth materials. We're a big buyer of, not within the trade space, but we're a big buyer of software. If you look at what we spend compared to as a percentage of Africa when we're buying software, and of course they don't put that in, I don't know why, but they don't put that into the trade mix. I know just our health department spends over 1.5 billion rand every single year just with Microsoft. So we spend a lot of money in dollars, and quite frankly, we should have been way ahead of the curve. And it's not even this current ambassador. Even the previous ambassador was not really on her game. And, the country's got to be much more awake to trade if we are to really get our economy going.
Premier, here is something of a reality check, and that is that this is a global trade disruption as a direct result of President Trump and his unorthodox way of doing things, to put a phrase to it. And President Trump, it would seem, no matter what South Africa could have done, there's just something in him that wants to punish South Africa. And here's the point I want to come to, Premier, and it's contained in the article, and that is that you say, if there are laws that are standing in the way of us reaching some kind of deal with America, then we've got to change it, because it's not assisting in the jobs space, and it's also not assisting in terms of economic growth. Are you advocating for the Trump administration to poke its nose in South African legislation and dictate to us what can and the government cannot do?
So I was actually talking about policies, and obviously those policies end up in laws. So, I mean, the Trump administration is raising a few issues. So we need to look at ourselves and say, okay, well, one thing is America, South Africa, but 30 years of certain policies in our country. Let's talk about BEE, which is something that Trump, the administration is raising. But let's not worry about that. Let's actually have a discussion here in South Africa around our policies, and are they working? Has BEE in our country created broad-based empowerment? No, it has absolutely failed. What it has done is created some really mega rich individuals, so it doesn't work. So let's review it. So, of course, at the same time, we should be reviewing our policy. One policy, another issue that is being raised by Trump is one of the crime rate. And I've been advocating now for a long time that we need to change our policing system and our criminal justice system. It is not working. Crime just gets worse and worse and worse. And quite frankly, we need to change the system. We can't keep with the same policies if they're not moving the dial, if they're not making it better. So we are saying, have a look at world best practice, have a look at where things do work. Let's change policies. Let's get devolution of policing. Let's get inspections happening in a different way. We've got pilot projects that we run alongside the city of Cape Town in targeting murder rates, etc. And we've shown technology, innovation, and deployment of police does make a difference. So let's actually really have an honest conversation. At the same time, we'll be fixing problems here back home, and it will be able to answer some of these issues that are being raised. Obviously, you can't have international governments dictating to us, but when they raise these questions, surely we should be asking ourselves at the same time, is they raising it? Let's raise it ourselves. Is it making a difference? Are we actually building it a safer community? Has BEE worked? Are we actually bringing down our unemployment rate? No. So at the same time, whatever those negotiations are going to bring, we've got to protect the jobs that we've got, diversify and look for new markets. And that's what makes me angry. We almost kind of just say, oh, well, let's just let this go by. We'll find something else. But what's going to happen? The unemployment rate's going to go up again. And really, it goes up in areas where we can least afford it.
Premier, you've made that link beautifully between the safety situation in the country and indeed the economy. I can't not ask you this briefly, please. What conversation have you had with your Minister of Agriculture, John Steenhuisen? He also happens to be your party leader, particularly as it regards these tariffs. The Western Cape is going to be, as you say, worst affected. Citrus comes from your province. Do you believe that he's done a good job? You really sounding negative on Parkstyle and him missing deadlines, but how efficient has John Steenhuisen been?
So in actual fact, the discussions over the last few days of what else are we going to be able to do now in this environment? And so the Minister, Steenhuisen, is busy looking at what other opportunities are there. And I'm going to be saying that as a province, we are also going to be having a look at what can provinces do. Obviously, trade relations are nation to nation, but we will certainly be looking alongside what Minister Steenhuisen is busy doing, what John's doing in alternate markets, and even currently in the USA, between the USA and South Africa. And as provinces, I'm going to be doing exactly the same thing.
And Winde, thank you.